Hey, what's up, guys? Christian Brindle here, and I am back with another person doing big time things in the insurance industry. And actually, this is part two of this conversation. If you haven't seen the first video that I did with Mr. Michael Weller, that actually, depending on when this actually comes out, I believe it might have been last week from when you actually will be seeing this video. I highly recommend you go back and check that out. This is essentially a continuation of that conversation because, both of us kind of felt that it was such a great conversation. There was so much depth to it, and there were so many different angles that we might have not had time to kind of really tackle that just to might kind of make sure that we gave you guys the full value on it. We wanted to make sure that we brought a second video to you guys to really be able to kind of cover and broach every subject that we can. First off, Michael, how are you doing today? And thanks for coming on again.
Man, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me again. It's a great day today. I've been seeing clients earlier today, and we had this scheduled. So been looking forward to this. So well, honestly, since last week, whenever we got to our stopping point, and you and I had so many more things to talk about on this topic with FMOs and what they can do for you, and at the same time what we can do for our FMOs to
Yeah.
continue those relationships. I've been jotting down some notes and looking forward to talking with you again. So thanks for having me on a second time this week.
Well, the feeling's mutual. I enjoyed last week's conversation a bunch, and as I always do when I get a chance to have conversations with you. And for those of you that might have not caught the video, again, I highly recommend you go watch the first video. But if you're stubborn and you're not going to, right, and you're just going to watch this one to kind of catch you up, the topic of conversation, like Michael said, was how can you have a mutually beneficial relationship with your FMO? How can you see the forest for the trees in terms of knowing if they are treating you well, right? And then at the same time, how can you be a valuable partner to them, right? Because the agent FMO relationship is very much one of a partnership, and it's a business partnership, and
Definitely.
there's so often times where you see that like the expectation of it is to be one-sided on one way or the other, whether it be in the FMO's favor or the agent's favor. So last week we dove into some really, really good kind of topics and kind of thoughts with this. But Michael, where do you think is a good point to pick this up as a continuation of next week? What are some things that we didn't quite get to that you feel like really kind of ties in nicely with this?
So last week we were really talking about what to expect from your FMO.
Yeah.
What's a realistic expectation? What are some of the things that we can do as agents to strengthen those relationships with our FMOs, and how to get the most out of it? But in addition to that, what is the FMO's expectation of us as agents? And I think this goes really well between you and me, Christian, you being an FMO owner, and I'm not. I have a fantastic relationship with my FMO, which is Senior Marketing Specialists out of Columbia, Missouri, that you're
Mm-hmm.
familiar with them. And
Mm-hmm.
we've kind of had some talks between the three of us. And in all fairness and disclosure, they are also an integrity company, and
Mm-hmm.
so being able to build those relationships with senior marketing specialists, I'm on their advisory council. I have great relationships with their key accounts groups and their advisors, and I'm able to ask about what's going on in the industry, what's happening with this well care situation, what's happening with all of the SARs, the pulling out of markets by insurance companies. What are some of the ways that other agents are handling these issues? That's really one of the biggest things that an FMO can do, is provide you information about
Mm-hmm.
what other agents are doing to help you build your own roadmap. And so last week when we were talking, we talked about everything that we can get from an FMO, but at the same time, what is our responsibility back to the FMO? Because whether you like it or not, we have a responsibility back to the FMO.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that goes to sales. We talked about having your contracts through an FMO, taking all of their resources and then not producing, you really can't expect an FMO to spend hours and hours and hours of their time if you are not financially helping the FMO.
Yeah.
And truly the only way of doing that is by writing business. So with that recap, to answer your question, Christian, kind of how I think that a good segue into today's topic or conversation would be to just kind of continue things. And I've got a couple questions for you from being an FMO side, but from an agent side, I would like to talk about a few things that I've written down, how I feel that we can be an asset to the FMO, and then get your opinions. Would that work for you?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
That would be great.
So one of the things that I think is very important is communication. I say that with clients, with your spouse, with your business partners, your downline agents, and then your upline. I think communication is really important. So one of the things that I wrote down, you need to be open and honest with your FMO and tell them the struggles that you're having or the problems that you're having. If there's something that you're not getting from your FMO, I think that you should have the courage to talk to your contact at the FMO and say, I'm not getting the support that I think that I should be getting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to clarify and continue on from last week, everybody needs to understand the difference between your upline GA or MGA and the FMO.
Yes.
Okay, there is a huge difference. And please don't mistake your GA as the FMO, because you may have a really good GA, you may not have a very good GA, and there's an FMO sitting behind them with a ton of resources that you can utilize. So with that first topic, talk to us from an FMO standpoint about your relationship with the agents and whether or not you find that helpful whenever one of your agents is having an issue or a struggle somewhere. How do you like to handle that from an FMO standpoint?
Yeah, I love the question so much because I think it's the real one that should be asked. And for me as an FMO, it actually, it's the most helpful thing an agent can do, in my opinion, for the relationship when they come to us, or me particularly, and if they are having some kind of problem, they articulate it to us and they keep that communication very, very open, right? Because as an FMO, right, one thing that people got to think about is you're dealing with a lot of different agents. And it's easy to just not even necessarily be aware of a problem being there if it's not brought to your attention, right? Like if you're looking at us as an example, right? I was on a call with a carrier earlier today, and it was a new carrier that we're starting to work with. They're starting to learn who we are and everything like that. And the phrase I used to describe our agency is like, we're a baby FMO. You know what I mean? Because I almost don't even feel right necessarily referring to us as an FMO from the standpoint that, when you think FMO, you're thinking 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40, 50, 60,000 agents, right? We're between 500 and 600 contracted agents right now. So we're, even with us at that amount of number, 500 to 600 agents, it is very difficult to keep up with whatever was going on with everyone.
Absolutely.
It's very difficult. And so, and I think we do a very good job at it. I don't think we're perfect. I think we could always get better. But anytime an agent comes to me and they're like, I don't love this, or I don't feel like I'm getting help here, or, I wish I could get more of this, or this is, or maybe even more than anything else, articulating that this is where I'm struggling with my business. This is where I'm struggling with my business. What should I do? What suggestions do you have? What advice can you give for me? And that puts me in a position where I can give them exactly what it is that they're wanting from me.
Right.
Sometimes as an
Absolutely.
FMO, it's so hard to know exactly what your agents are going to be wanting from you because everybody has a different set of needs. One thing we talked about last week that I think is relevant here is, people's different stages of their growth, right? Like a new
Yes,
agent
sir.
needs product knowledge, a new agent needs, their handheld. Maybe they need to sit in on some appointments. A more seasoned agent doesn't care about any of that. A more
Right.
seasoned agent wants to know, how do I staff more? How do I hire more? How do I scale? How do I
Exactly.
market more efficiently? And so, as an FMO, you don't know off the top of your head what everybody is going to need. So when that communication comes in, it makes your job so much easier to be able to service the agents better. And I also think that it puts you in a position where, if you value the partnership as an FMO with that agent, and of course, all FMOs should, but not all probably do. But if they value that partnership with the agent, they are put in a position where they can show their transparency. They
Right.
can show their transparency. That point you brought up a few minutes ago, Michael, about your knowing the difference between your GA and your FMO. There was a situation even last night in one of the big Facebook groups, not even mine, but a different one. I don't know if you
Okay.
saw that post, but somebody commenting and saying, you know, my upline is telling me that to get a GA contract with a carrier that I won't name the carrier, I need like 5 agents and I need a certain production, story we've all heard a million times, right? It's as old as time.
Right.
So I comment on the post and I said, you need one, but with this particular carrier, you need 25 for the MGA equivalent. I'm sure you know which carrier I'm talking about. So this guy sees my comment, leaves me a positive comment as, thank you for being transparent, slides in my DMs, and we talked for probably another 20, 30 minutes. He doesn't know who I am, actually. He has no idea who I am because he's not in my group. And, I'm just trying to answer his questions and help him out a little bit. Come to find out, after having a conversation with this guy, he's under a GA. And that, to me, is, I told him, I'm like, either your upline doesn't know themselves or they're not being completely honest with you. But sometimes uplines might not be honest with you because if they're a GA and you want to be a GA, there's a conflict there. You can't be at the same level and be connected
Exactly.
on a hierarchy basis. And you could just kind of see throughout the conversation, like the light bulb starting to click for him in terms of like why he's experiencing what he's experiencing.
Sure.
And you see those types of situations often. I think as an upline, or an FMO, when an agent comes to you and they express those types of challenges they're facing, you have the opportunity. Like if I was in that situation and I was a GA and someone wanted to be a GA under me, the best thing I could do is I could say, listen, I could be transparent. I could say, listen, I'm one level above you. You want to move up, which would put you at my level. That's not allowed on the carrier side. However, you've done everything you need to do to earn that level. I would love to continue working with you. If you give me some time, maybe I can move up to that other level through my own growth. But if you don't want to do that and you want to do that, this now, it's perfectly all right if we shake hands and go our separate ways. And I wish you the best. That's the way you handle that situation.
Sure.
And I think
Or,
transparency is everything.
absolutely. Or from my side, you're not really necessarily even shaking hands and going their own way. That's where that GA ought to make a direct introduction to the FMO.
Yes,
And stay
absolutely.
with the same FMO, same support, same back office assistance, everything that they're used to, but just move them out from underneath a GA
Yes.
level to their own and stay
Yeah.
with the same FMO.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, right? And this specific individual asked me, he's like, is it as simple as going to the FMO that they're under and going out from under them? My response was, I'm like, it's easy for them to do.
Mhm.
One thing you have to be aware of, though, is a lot of FMOs might not be willing to do that because it's a conflict with the GA that you're under, right?
Right.
In their mind, you're their agent, you're the GA's agent, not the FMO's agent. And they don't want to create a reputation that they're swiping agents out from under their partner
Absolutely.
agencies, right? So I'm like, it's probably a good idea to have the conversation with your GA, because likely for any reputable FMO, you probably will need that GA's blessing if you want to go direct to that FMO. And so I think it's
Sure.
about, I think it's about, you know, from an agent's perspective, coming to the FMO, I think it's about just really being honest and transparent and just leveling with people, right? Like there's so many situations that I see where people are, strategizing, they're conniving, they're just and that just puts the FMO in a position where you don't feel like that person really valued your relationship always. And maybe, in that situation, right, like the GA making the introduction to the FMO, that's something they can do. It's not something they have to do. But
Very, very true. Yes,
if the agent goes about things properly and respectfully, the chances of them doing that probably goes up exponentially.
certainly.
And so, yeah, I think for me, it always comes down to being completely honest and clear about what the needs are and what challenges the agent's facing, because then we know kind of what questions they need answers from us on.
Absolutely. All that's excellent information. And I'm really glad to hear you talk about that interaction from an FMO standpoint, making sure that the FMO isn't stepping on the GA's toes or poaching their agents out from underneath them. And I'm not I'm familiar with the posts that you're talking about, but I'm not familiar with the agent. I don't know anything about their business. And I don't know whether their production is high enough to be a GA, to be
Right.
able to do
Same.
that.
Same.
So yeah, so there are people that think that they should be getting GA or MGA contracts and they're writing 50 new clients a year. That isn't going to
Yes.
happen in the real world.
I,
Your production has to be much higher than that.
and I think that's also a great perspective as well. There's a lot of times where agents don't understand that when your levels increase as an agent and your overrides increase with you, those levels, the overrides that you're gaining is at the expense of the FMO, right? It's coming out of their pocket. So like,
Right.
I'll give you another scenario with this, right? Like I had a conversation with one of my staff members today where I won't give you the exact numbers or anything like that, but essentially we brought on a group earlier this year and they are a very good producing group. And we put them at a level that essentially puts them at a level that they are essentially getting about 90% of the available override, and we're getting maybe that last 10%. So
Sure.
we're having this conversation about this about this group with one of my team members, and they proceed to talk to me and they're like, "Help me understand why we would be willing to do that." And so I'm like, "Okay, let's use this as an example." And I pull up our United Healthcare report, just United Healthcare. I'm like, let's just look at one carrier. We're going through this one carrier, and we haven't looked at any of the others. This group has probably 25 contracted agents. And
Okay.
with just the one carrier, they had done over, when I pulled up the report for the last 30 days, they had done over 150 enrollments. And so I explained to her, I'm like, okay, so 150, you look at the very slight amount that we're getting on an override perspective, but look at the volume that they're doing without
Right.
us really needing to push them over the finish line. And so, it's this constant balancing act from the FMO's perspective of, if I give somebody this contract level and I'm getting 10% of the available override, let's say, versus a street level agent that I'm getting it all, if the guy that I'm getting 10% of the override on from my agency is causing me just as much grief and is as needy as the street level guy, what am I doing here?
Yep.
Right? And maybe they're doing the same amount of production. And so agents, when they're very demanding about things like that, I think they need to put themselves in their FMO shoes, because now there is the flip side where the FMO is denying something that's deserved. That happens
Certainly.
too. Um,
Absolutely does.
and it's a short-sighted mentality, right? Someone deserves a GA contract or someone deserves a certain contract, and they're not getting it simply because the FMO doesn't want to give up any of their override. That's extremely short-sighted. I would rather maintain a relationship with a great partner, even if it means we're making less. But if we're making less and they've earned a new level, it means that they're growing and they don't need as much handholding from us. They're more self-sufficient.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so it's a perspective that agents probably oftentimes don't look at because they don't see it from the outside looking in.
Exactly right.
But it is always a balancing act from the FMO, is like, are we getting enough production? And is this person as needy? Are they too needy, right, for us to give this much up, right? Do we feel like we deserve what we're getting based on how much we have to bend over backwards for them? And that's a conversation that happens inside of FMOs all the time.
Yep, certainly. From an FMO standpoint, I know, and continuing on with communication, one of the things that I've talked with senior marketing specialists about in this conversation, prepping for this conversation here, I asked them from their standpoint, what is something that an agent can do to help strengthen that back and forth, the communication? And one of the things was, talk with your FMO about how you like to receive their updates, how you like to be, or how you would like to hear from your FMO. And that could be, if it's a webinar, if you enjoy those webinars, number one, if you enjoy a webinar that your FMO is hosting, make sure that you're watching them. Make sure that you're going on, that if they're at a scheduled time, if they're live, be there for them. That gives them instant feedback that people are interested in what they're talking about. Okay, so that's,
and also tell them that you enjoyed it. Articulate it.
Yep. That's exactly where I was gonna go next, is comment. If it's something that your FMO is putting out on YouTube or on Facebook, whatever the platform is, supporting your FMO in such a simple way as giving them a like or following that channel, making a comment underneath those videos, that gives them instant feedback that what they're doing is appreciated. And those views, it's all a super easy way for us as agents to support our FMO. Yeah. So I know with you having such a large YouTube channel, thanks for saying that. I was just about to say, I'm sure you agree with all of that.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, right? Because there's been many times where either we're doing a private training internally for our agents, or maybe we're doing something publicly on YouTube and maybe it just doesn't get the reception we were expecting on it, right? Like, I've always told everybody that we do videos for, trainings for, everything like that, I'm like, you guys drive the bus. If you guys react positively to something, we'll do more of it. If you don't, we're going to try something else to get to that point where we're getting the reaction that we want out of it, because we want to put out what's going to be the most helpful. And, there's been situations where we'll do a video and it doesn't get the reception that maybe we thought it might. And so we move away from it. We stop doing it. And somebody will come to me 3-4 months down the road. They'll be like, I loved this video that you did. Why don't you do something like that anymore? I'm like, because no one said anything about it. Nobody gave us the feedback. And so
precisely,
that communication, I think, is incredibly pivotal. Michael, I wanted to ask you a question kind of related to that as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Because you've done such a masterful job at really, building the relationship that you have with your FMO. And I think you've done such a fantastic job at it. Do you feel like it is more on the agent, or is it more on the FMO to build that relationship, or is it a mixture? What is your thoughts on that?
This video is sponsored by none other than Lead Heroes, you guys. Lead Heroes is going to be your one-stop shop when it comes to your Medicare and final expense needs. People ask me all the time, Christian, what type of lead is going to be the best quality for me to work? And I don't really quite know if the answer is going to be a digital marketing lead, a direct mail lead, or a telemarketed lead, but I can say that a telemarketed lead is going to be up there with the best of them in terms of quality. A telemarketed lead has unique quality to it because there's a live person that actually speaks to the prospective customer and gets their verbal consent that they're interested and willing to speak with a licensed agent just like you. Whether it be a pre-scheduled Medicare appointment with a scope of appointment captured and then scheduled on your calendar 48 hours out, or whether it be a custom calling campaign where you call the shots, where your scripts are used, where it's the areas of your choosing, when it's the times of the day that you're choosing. Custom calling is where you pay by the hour, and essentially it's a custom campaign built to your liking. Lead Heroes has got you covered for all of these unique type of marketing needs for agents. There's a link down in the description of this video about Lead Heroes. You can learn more about these incredibly unique lead generation services, and I think you'll want to check it out today so you can continue to grow and explode your business.
I definitely think it's a mixture. I think that FMOs are, well, here's maybe a good example, Christian. As an agent, we try to build a relationship with our clients. You can look at agents and the FMO partnership, because that's truly what it ends up being, is a partnership, but a relationship. The FMO is the top of the line to the agents, the same way that the agents are the top of the line to the client. So I think all of us can agree as agents that we are reaching out to our clients. Maybe some of us a little better than others, if we're going to be honest about it. I know that there are times that I feel like I don't reach out to my clients quite enough, but it isn't always the clients reaching back out to us as agents. And one of the things that I tell my clients, I can't help you unless I know that there's a problem. And I've done training with other agents before and said, guys, if you're too damn scared to ask your clients for negative feedback, then you are hurting your own business. Because if you don't know that there is a problem, if you're too afraid to ask your clients what they're unhappy about, you can't fix the problem.
That's it.
And they're going to go find an agent that promises them the world, whether they deliver or not, but they're going to make them feel better about fixing a problem that they're having. And if you don't ask that client what they're unhappy about, you can't fix it. So I think an FMO is very similar with that situation. I think an FMO has the responsibility to be reaching out. And I'm going to say that most FMOs do. They send out a weekly email. They send out, a text message once in a while, whoever your contact is. They send out trainings that they are doing, and they are inviting you to participate in those. If you are an agent and you are not calling your FMO saying, hey, and this goes back to our very first talking point today, telling your FMO that you're not feeling like you're getting enough support, that really, in my opinion, falls on you as the agent. If you're not reaching out to your FMO, that's why there's a miscommunication. I don't think it's intentional that an FMO isn't providing those things. I don't think that it's intentional that you're unhappy with a situation. There's just a breakdown in the communication. So I think it's a two-way street. I think an FMO, on average, probably does a much better job at communicating, reaching out more, saying, hey, talk to us. Hey, join us for this. And agents aren't always reaching back out and participating,
Yeah.
even if it's a training that I'm not going to get a lot out of, I will sometimes log in and join a training. And if there is something that I overhear, or there is another agent that has a question about it, maybe I can jump in, and being able to relate to that other agent, because we're here on the front lines, maybe I can say something in a different way than the FMO says that really registers. And while I may not be getting a whole lot out of a training topic, maybe there is something that's in there that jogs my memory, and I go, you know what? I had completely forgotten about that. That's a fantastic idea. And then I can start implementing it. So just participate, be present, see what you can supply to everyone else that's on a call like that. Maybe you ask a very good question that helps 10 or 12 other agents that are on that call, but be there. And it's on the agent to reach out to try to build that relationship just as much as the FMO.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. One thing that kind of jumps into my mind as we're having this conversation is,
okay,
and we talked about this a little bit last week, but I feel like it's so important to kind of reiterate that if you're valuing your FMO, and if you're appreciating something that they're bringing to the table for you, I think it can be such a valuable thing to give them shout outs. We talked about that last week, right? Let
yes,
people
sir.
know that you're enjoying the relationship with them. I can't tell you how many times we've had agents with us, and sometimes it's agents that don't necessarily, they're maybe not always in our top tier of producers, right?
Okay.
Sometimes they're good producers, or maybe just average producers that we will spend more time with them, and we'll maybe go even a little bit farther with them in terms of our time investment than we would for someone else doing the level of production they're doing, because they're such wonderful cheerleaders for us publicly, right?
Absolutely.
It's hard, it makes us feel appreciated. It makes the FMO, makes your FMO feel appreciated. And so, I've seen situations like that, especially with us, where like, it's not that we do a bad job for the person that says nothing, that's silent, that does the same amount of production, but maybe like if someone's doing 75 enrollments a year, there's a level of support that we're going to provide to them in terms of our time investment. If somebody's doing, and if we go above that level of time investment and their production doesn't go up, it's hurting us as a business. So maybe someone's at 75 apps a year, there's a level of support we might provide, or maybe not support, maybe that's the wrong word, but the level of time investment that we might put towards something for someone.
Right.
That is equivalent to 150 apps a year, or 200 apps a year, or something like that. Maybe we're willing to stretch that a little bit and go even a little higher, because this person is valuable. They are a cheerleader for us, and that ultimately ends up driving more agents to wanting to work with us, right? So it's not always just about app count. Certainly, don't get me wrong, app count helps. Like, if no matter how great of a cheerleader you are for your FMO, if you're doing 0 apps, you're doing 0 apps. You know what I mean? Like, there's a limit to what they can do for you. But I think it certainly strengthens your relationship with your FMO, and it allows them to look at you as like, there's a lot of value here. There's a lot of value with this person. And, we appreciate their relationship. We appreciate their partnership. We appreciate their kind words. Maybe you do a review for your FMO once in a while. If they ask for a review, maybe you do a Google review, something like that. And at the end of the day, it's a people business, and the more you show appreciation, your FMOs are just people too. They like feeling that appreciation, and it ultimately, helps them have even more motivation to run through a wall for you.
Yep. You saying that, Christian, back here behind me, I've got a bunch of thank you cards from clients, and it makes me feel great. Yeah. It makes me feel great whenever a client says, you know what, I was scared to death coming off of my group plan. You sat down with me. You made this so understandable. watching all of the YouTube videos, watching all of the TikToks, trying to read all the stuff that these insurance companies and other agents are mailing me all the time. I sat down with you and I understand Medicare now as much as I need to understand it. That's what these thank you cards are saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels great to get a thank you card. Send your upline or your FMO a thank you card.
Mm-hmm.
A few weeks ago, I was at Senior Marketing Specialists and we did a bunch of videos. And I sent a thank you card to the videographer and said, I appreciate you walking me through this. It's intimidating walking into a studio and trying to come up with everything that I'm going to say in these different videos. And you made it so easy for me. You put me at ease and I was comfortable. And 10 minutes into our time together, all of the fear went away and I was able to knock out all of these videos. Thank you for editing these for me, putting them together to where I can send these to the client, because ultimately that's going to help my business and how much I earn this year. And I sent him a thank you card. While I was there, I actually said, you know what? I am so grateful for the contracting work that the employees do from the FMO, the legislative side, that all the updates that we're getting, the work that I get from contracting, from commission questions, that whenever I have a client that has a really in-depth problem with a carrier and I reach out to the team for claims or complaints or whatever department it is, every single time that I call, I can hear the person smiling on the other end of the phone. They're always there to be able to support me. And I know that there's absolutely no way that I can get everything done in my agency without having that support backing me up. So I actually asked them if I could just record a quick little video to all of the employees at Senior Marketing Specialists, thanking them for doing their job, which allows us to help all of these clients. Because your FMO employees, they don't usually get to see the end clients.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, if we're, again, being honest, a lot of times we're reaching out to the FMO whenever we're mad about something.
Yeah.
When something has gone wrong, right?
When there's something to complain about.
Right. And so a lot of these positions that these people are in, they're not getting a lot of great interaction with agents. And there are a lot of us agents that can be kind of mean. We're used to dealing with the carriers, then we're talking and we get frustrated that something isn't working. So maybe our tempers get a little bit out of hand whenever we're talking to somebody that truly is there to help us. So I recorded a video and sent it to all of the employees there at Senior Marketing Specialists and just thanked them for doing their jobs, which allows me to do my job.
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
one way to support your FMO.
That's great. And I really love that. I want to be respectful of your time, Michael, but there was one more topic that I wanted to make sure we had time to cover.
Yes.
And that was we're having a conversation about that kind of ties in with this, right? And that's building a relationship and how important it is building a relationship with your local carrier reps if you're a field agent, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you talk about how building relationships with your local carrier reps with the various carriers in your market has really helped your business and kind of the benefits that you see as an agent by taking the time to do that?
Of course. Yes. I think this topic, or having a relationship with your local carrier reps, is something that most agents do not understand how crucial that can be for you as an agent.
Yeah.
And to kind of segue into this and tie the FMO in, another way, and probably my last point about FMOs, if you have a new carrier to your state, or if you're selling in multiple states, if you are getting approached by some other carrier that you're not contracted with, talk with your FMO that you currently have your contracts through and say, hey, do you guys represent these? Let's say that you've got some other FMO that's reaching out to you and they're saying, hey, we can get you this level of a contract or something. Talk with your own FMO and say, hey, I've been approached by XYZ contracting. They're telling me that they'll give me this level. Can you give me that level? And if you're opening that door with your own FMO and giving them that opportunity to work with you and continue that relationship, I think that you're going to find, as long as your levels of production are realistic, that they're going to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you have a local rep, let's say that's one of the big carriers, United Healthcare or Aetna or Humana or whoever in the world it is, or if it's even a local carrier, somebody that is maybe in your state, in your area, maybe 2 or 3 different states, learning about those products, going to the rollouts every single year, reaching out to those local managers whenever you have an issue with something and building that relationship, responding to their emails. If they're holding a webinar about something, joining the webinar, interacting with them, just as we've said from the FMO side, those local reps, they're trying to help us as well. If you can get in there to those webinars, those in-person meetings, and build those relationships, those carrier reps have a massive opportunity to affect your business.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if, let's just say, a hospital reaches out to one of your local carriers and says, guys, you know what we're going to do? We're going to open up a brand new educational room in our hospital. Medicare is so important to our patients. Hey, United Healthcare, hey, Aetna, Humana, whoever it is, doesn't matter. But we would like for you to bring in some of your agents that you trust, that are knowledgeable, that are going to take care of our patients. And we want those agents to come in, let's say every month, and hold a Medicare 101. And we will notify all of our patients that are 63 and older that we're going to have this. And your agent will be able to come in to our facility. We will make sure that people are there. And that agent will have the opportunity to help them with their Medicare coverage. Well, if you haven't spoken to your local rep in 3.5 years, you're not going to get a phone call to come help them.
That's right.
But
that's right.
If you're going to the rollouts every year, if you are building a relationship with those local agents and you're asking them questions, you're providing feedback. Maybe there's a questionnaire, maybe there's a roundtable discussion, and you let your local agent manager know, hey, I would love to be able to share feedback from what those clients are telling us, and you're giving them some value back. Well, then in that hypothetical situation that I just concocted, you're probably going to get a phone call from your local rep saying, hey, we have this opportunity that has just come up. I'll give you an example that happened to me directly. One of my carriers called me. They were sponsoring a bicycle ride. So Great Big Bike Ride was bringing in something like 3,000 bicyclists. They had a senior class, so they were sponsoring that senior class that was doing this ride. And I was able to go out and have a booth completely paid for by the carrier. All I did was show up. I had all of the giveaways to hand out to people. I was able to hand out my business card to hundreds of people that were there, set appointments with some of the participants, set appointments with people that were there to support the participants. And the reason that I was able to go sit there on a Saturday morning and have absolutely no out-of-pocket expense of my own other than my business cards was because my rep knew that I do seminars, that I do dinners, that I go out to local groups, and I'm presenting Medicare 101. I'm participating in local fairs, and I had the experience to do it. And they had been going around to these different fairs to see what was going on, participating as sponsors. And the more that they saw me there participating, they knew that I was someone that they could trust and that I was going to represent the brand to the highest level. And it puts clients in my book of business.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way that a carrier rep's relationship helped put money in my pocket. And I think it's a very important thing for us to talk about. If you're working with an FMO, that's wonderful. You're going to be able to get a lot of information from them. If you're working with your local managers, maybe you find out 3 months early that negotiations aren't going so well with a hospital, and that it may be something that you need to prepare for, and you're able to do that. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's a situation where they say, hey, we don't have anything official, but you may have heard we're finally looking at getting X, Y, and Z as an in-network facility. And we may be able to expand into that area. And if you know that, then you're able to start spreading that word and be ready for it whenever it officially is released. And then you're ahead of so many other agents that won't hear about it until the rollout, or they might happen to get an email from the carrier 3 weeks after the agreement has been signed. Hey, by the way, and then that agent may not even open the email and read it.
Right.
And so
right.
you're able to be a little bit more knowledgeable.
Yeah. I think that's such a great point. I think back to, when I started myself selling as an agent, and there's countless situations I could kind of talk about where I was assisted by a carrier rep in our area. I'll never forget. I think it was either my first or second AEP. I want to say second AEP, actually. I don't think it would have been my first. I think it was my second AEP. But one of our regional carriers here, this was years ago, but they were doing sales seminars at their office. They have large office, here in the area, and they would pick very specific agents who they felt good about, and they'd invite them to attend these sales seminars. Now, they were doing all the registration. Anybody that knows sales seminars knows that, they're a little bit more of a headache in terms of registration, compliance, everything like that than maybe the educationals can be sometimes. But it was at their office. The presenter was one of the carrier reps for this carrier. So they were doing a presentation. They were doing everything. The only thing they were asking for is to pick a couple of agents, and they'd invite a different agent to each seminar to sit in the seminar and basically sit in the back. And then at the end, anybody that wanted to enroll can walk back and enroll with the agent. And
love it.
It was the sweetest gig of all time, because you literally do nothing. You literally say nothing. The carrier rep is charismatic. They're funny, everything like that. They give a great presentation. The people walk back, and, back then we were doing paper apps with this carrier. They didn't even have e-apps yet. So whip out your paper app and you're doing the app with them. And, those types of things, you're not. Now, does that thing happen a lot today? Maybe not as much, but situations like that can arise if you have a good relationship with a carrier. We've had carriers, do local marketing money, pay for mailers, pay for this, pay for that.
Right.
Which is certainly very helpful and appreciative. The number one thing I think you can do as well is if, the carrier rep goes out of their way to try to help you, and maybe they pay for something, maybe they put you in a scenario, where you can write business. I remember other carriers would invite us to be in booths of theirs with carrier reps for like expos and things like that,
Right.
they paid a couple grand maybe to be there for that table, and we're there as an independent agent. And so, but what I found is anytime they put you in a situation to be successful, or maybe they give you some leads or some referrals or anything like that, the best thing you can do is make them look good to their bosses and their superiors. And the way you're going to do that is try to push as much business to them as possible with those scenarios, if it makes sense for the client. Of course, you always want to do what's best for the client, but if the opportunity presents itself, sling some business their way, and they'll love you forever, because the carrier rep's job is to hit certain quotas for the carrier. And if they look at you as, someone that they can rely on, and they can maybe put a little bit of an investment in it, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to produce some business for them, you're helping them get to where they want. And so I think that's such a great reminder for agents. And don't get me wrong, right? There's carrier reps that, not all carrier reps are created equal, right? Some are much easier to work with than others. Some are more responsive than others. But the worst thing I think you can do is burn a bridge with a carrier rep. There's been carrier reps over the years that I've just wanted to just come unglued on. And you can't do it. You can't do it. You have to stay respectful. You have to keep the relationship up, because even if they're not your best friend, they can still help you at some point, and they're people too, right? If you're always giving them a hard time, if you're always sending them fiery, emails and everything like that, they might not be jumping up and down for joy to answer your phone calls when you call. Not saying they won't, but maybe they won't answer all of them.
Right. Yeah. And if an opportunity comes up, they're probably not going to be calling you.
Yes. Yes. Remember, we're all human beings, like we like to interact with people that, don't drive us crazy, don't make us miserable.
Exactly.
And your carrier reps are the same way, and your FMOs are the same way. I mean, don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, it's business, and if you're producing, and that does a lot for you. But if you're producing and you're a joy to work with, that's usually the people that get the most support all around from everybody.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of times, if you're a brand new agent watching this, you can reach out to either your local manager, your carrier manager, carrier rep, or your FMO, and get your questions answered. But here's a tip, and this even goes to some of the Facebook groups. Try to find the answer yourself before you ask the question.
Yes.
and I don't mean that. Chris and I are both laughing at this because we've had this conversation off camera multiple times. But I'm not being ugly with that statement. I'm really not being ugly. But if there is a question that you have, Google the question. You're probably going to find the answer by a simple Google search. And then if you're finding conflicting information, then ask your local rep, call your FMO, ask in one of the Facebook groups, but try to find the answer yourself if it's kind of a simple question. If you're in one of the groups, there's a little magnifying glass up there at the top. It's a search. Type in a keyword, and you're probably going to see 72 other people have asked the same question, and people will answer it for you. Mm-hmm. But if you're reaching out, and this is kind of the reoccurring theme, you are taking away some of the time that the FMO or the local rep has to be able to do their jobs. If you're asking a simple question, do them the courtesy of trying to find the answer before you ask the question. Look at an enrollment guide. And if they give you that answer and they tell you where that answer is, like the handbook, the producer's handbook, get a copy of it. Put it on the corner of your desk. Put it in your top drawer. They're all digital. Save a copy of it. Control F, the keyword of the topic that you're looking for, and then try to answer your own question. Number one, they're going to be appreciative if you're asking those questions that really are a little bit more in depth and they're not just, entry level, surface level questions. But you can also tell them, say, hey, I've looked at the producer guide and it says over here on page 72 that it's this, but then I thought I heard somewhere else that it was this. Is this new information or old information? Can you clarify it because I'm still not understanding it? Number one, you're going to be a better agent because you know how to go find that answer. And number two, the people that you're asking for help will know that you're not just abusing their goodwill. And on this, another little tip, and I'm getting really off topic here, but Christian, you and I have talked about this, and I think maybe we even talked about this in last week's episode here. If you don't know the answer to a question, don't be afraid to tell your client that you don't know the answer.
Yes.
And then get the real information. And I don't think it was actually whenever I was in your office talking with you is whenever we had this conversation. It just dawned on me. But if you don't know the answer, that's okay. You don't have to know everything, but don't act like you do. And try to find the answer. You're going to have a deeper knowledge base, which is going to help you with your clients in the future. And you're not taking those resources away from your FMO, your upline, or your local carrier manager because you've tried to find the answer yourself. And most of the time, you're going to be successful doing that. And putting in that work is going to make you a better agent. That's what it boils down to.
Yep, I would agree. Well said. Michael Weller. I feel like we could keep this conversation going another hour. I want to be respectful of your time. This was great. I certainly appreciate all of your tips, all of your insight, and I think this is going to be very valuable for a lot of people. To close things out, the last question I'm going to ask you is, where can people connect with you if they wanted to after watching this all the way to the end?
Man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that opportunity because you and I think, are kind of kindred spirits in this regard.
Yes, of course.
We get a lot of joy. We get a lot of fulfillment in helping other people. And that's why we're in this business. We're helping the clients. I enjoy being able to help other agents. Find me on Facebook. Send me a friend request. Comment on something that I'm talking about in one of the groups. Or shoot me an email if you want to send me an email. My email address is Michael, Michael, at okcins.com. Stands for Oklahoma City Insurance. So appreciate the opportunity, Christian. I appreciate you being so giving of your knowledge and looking out for so many people and trying to help folks. It's a great example, and I think that's why I enjoy talking with you so much, either on camera or off camera, is because we share that goal at the heart of everything that we do is helping other people. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And, you are such an, industry savant. So it's always a pleasure to get to talk with you because it's fun to talk to other people that, are maybe unhealthily obsessed with our industry. There's not too many of us walking around. So when we do get around each other, it's always fun. It's always a good time.
It is. We go down some rabbit holes, don't we?
We do. For everybody watching at home, if you made it all the way to the end, You are the real MVP. I certainly appreciate your support. Drop a like on this video. It helps more agents just like you find the content who may desperately need this information. Comment your thoughts down below if there's anything you feel like we missed, or maybe if there's anything you wanted to kind of, comment on or have commentary on that we talked about. Subscribe, and we will be putting more videos out for you as we go. Appreciate all your guys' support, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.